to kindly put yourself in mute and keep the video off. This is to get more bandwidth. And I would request, because some of the principals, couple of them have been already committed, to some other webinar, and they have not been able to register today. 2 to 3 principals would like to have the recording as well. So I think Dr. Sri Varamangai, madam, she is the head of the Department of IT. She has always supported university in its technical IT support. I would like to take this opportunity to thank her. She is also the coordinator of UCC of University of Mumbai and has made a lot of paradigm changes with respect to adoption of ICT by University of Mumbai. Thank you, Dr. Sri Varamangai, madam. So then I would, with your permission, I would request that once my presentation gets completed, we can have a discussion. And for that, there is a raise hand option here. If you see in the panel, when you can see the panel, the raise hand option, if you click on that, you can raise your hands. And once the talk is over, you can ask your queries. It's basically a discussion rather than a Q&A, because you all are stalwarts in your own fields and key opinion leaders. It would be more of a deliberation. So with your kind permission and with the permission of Dr. Mangai, can I make a start?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
How many people have joined in by now?
1 second. We have now 100.
Okay, fine. Good enough. Others can all join in later. So I would now project my presentation. Okay. Dr. Mangai, is the presentation first page visible?
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we start with my talk, which has been titled AICTE's Examination Reform Policy, Thrust on Outcome-Based Education, which I felt was very relevant at this juncture because we are at the threshold of changing and further revising our second year BE syllabi. Similarly, in pharmacy, they have adopted the PCI syllabus. Architecture has also been working into improvising their curriculum. So it was pertinent that we discuss about what are the approaches of outcome-based education, which has been postulated by All India Council of Technical Education. Now, as you all are aware, AICTE has been phase-wise putting in a lot of changes. So AICTE calls it as a multi-pronged approach. That is multi-dimensional approach. And we've seen several changes which has been enacted by them by virtue of reforms of model curriculum for various engineering disciplines. So in 2018 early months, we saw that they have released the model curriculum for several undergraduate branches of engineering and as well as postgraduate branches of engineering. And if you see in 2019, they have also released the model curriculum of the emerging areas like, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, etc., etc. The intention is also to provide good quality self-learning content through MOOCs. And we have seen how much the MHRD, the Government of India, has worked towards consolidating the platforms of SWAYAM and NPTEL. And several of the IITs and national institutes the faculty members have been involved in fortifying and improving these courses. Today, if we see, there is a multidisciplinary approach required of the learner. The comprehension is required. So actually, if you see, even NPTEL platform is providing some humanity courses as well and other courses which students can avail of. As once I was talking to Professor Ukarande, Principal Coach, we were discussing when we had
applied 7x minus 10x, then it becomes minus 10x. So what happens?
Requesting some to kindly switch
Some
off.
people, excuse me, some people are keeping their microphones on, and that's why there is an echo. Kindly ask others to switch off their microphones.
Requesting the participants to kindly mute themselves. Requesting participants to kindly mute themselves. Thank you very much. So it is very essential today for our learners, our students who graduate and postgraduate, to have a multi-dimensional view of things. The future will be, if you have seen the draft new education policy, of interdisciplinary approach. Our learners should have comprehension of applications of their knowledge and skills to other areas as well. So framing, the AICTE has also framed a policy of training of trainers, that is teachers training, and many of our faculty, as you know, even during the lockdown, have undertaken the teachers training courses of AICTE as well as NITTTR, TTR. We have now started since some time the 3-week student induction program. From 13th May to 17th May, AICTE has conducted the program, for faculty members on how to introduce the element of human values during the induction program. We have heard about IQ, intelligence quotient. We know now the importance of EQ, that is emotional quotient. There's also an importance of sensitivity quotient or empathy quotient, which I call it. Because a student just equipped with technical knowledge and skills, lacking in soft skills or lacking in emotional quotient, cannot be a good leader, cannot be a team person, cannot take pragmatic, consensual decisions. So it is very important that we have this 3-week student induction program, as we are envisaging that when we start in August, the next academic year, for second, third, final year, and for first year from September, we can include not only the element of how to inculcate human values. We have seen how the COVID-19 situation has been unprecedented and has challenged set beliefs which we had. I always say the conjecture that we are in control has been dispelled by this situation. So it is essential that we add these parts in these 3-week student induction program. Plus, I'm sure university will also give some guidelines. We should have a minimum, a module for students who have not been much associated with biological sciences for long, on the concept of germ theory, contagious diseases, quarantine mechanisms, and why quarantining is essential, the sanitation concepts, the hygiene concepts for the students, as well as a brief on immunity. We have to give a positive feeling that, our body is equipped to fight infections, whether bacteria or virus. So, we should not have a paranoia of students. When we open, whether we are going to open phase-wise, percentage-wise attendance, that time will only tell. The ministry and the government will look into the COVID-19 situation in Maharashtra and in Mumbai and accordingly release the guidelines for the same. AICTE had also made internships mandatory, which gave a big industry perspective to the students. And students were getting an understanding of the real world situation and scenario in their respective occupational fields. Now coming to the examination reform policy. So as we have seen globally, there has been a lot of think tanks have really deliberated. Are we teaching correct content? How are we delivering? Are our pedagogies fine? And how are we assessing after teaching? So these 3 pertinent issues were deliberated globally, and it has been decided that it has to be competency-based teaching, which we have to impart. AICTE has taken this multi-pronged approach, and the examination reform policy was released in November 2018. Already, as I spoke, AICTE has bolstered and consolidated the Swayam and the NPTEL platforms as well for self-learning of students. Now, if you see this document, it has been divided into 4 recommended areas, 4 sections, recommendations.
Hello, madam.
Excuse me,
Yes.
ma'am.
Ma'am, your
Yes.
slideshow is not on.
Slides are not changing.
Your slides are not moving, ma'am.
Mangai madam, I am changing it here.
Better take it to slideshow.
It is in slideshow only. Should I again project it and see? Okay.
Stop sharing, again start sharing, and then put it in slideshow.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, can you all see the slide now?
It's a first slide,
ma'am.
madam.
It's not. It's not full. It's not presentation mode, ma'am.
I will do it on presentation mode. I'm requesting. Yeah. Is it fine now? Can you all see now?
Ma'am,
No,
the
madam.
presentation
It's not
is
moving.
seen, but you have not gone in slideshow. Please go in slideshow.
This is in that, that goblet. I'll just go back.
Madam, press F5. Function key F5.
I'll just take this above. Mangai madam, I'm clicking this, correct?
Yes, it's okay. But then if it is in slideshow, then in full screen it will be visible.
Yeah, right now it is visible, ma'am.
It is visible, no? For all others?
Yeah, it is visible. It is visible.
But it is not in slideshow.
Continue with scrolling down.
Yeah, it is not in slideshow, but it is visible.
Now, Narode sir, can you see it?
Yeah, ma'am.
The recommendation slide, can you see it, sir?
No, it is,
Yeah.
madam. Your
Yes,
slides,
it's okay, ma'am.
No.
slides are seen, but it is not moving. Will you please put it on slideshow mode? At the bottom of your computer, you have to click on that slideshow wala button.
I am clicking that only. Just see, this is the goblet, right, for the slideshow.
Yes, madam.
Yes.
So I have clicked on it.
Just click
Here
on it.
Yes. Now?
It is not. No. It is not going in slideshow mode.
You stop sharing the screen, put it on slideshow and then share the screen.
Okay, got it.
Doesn't matter now.
That is also one option.
Doesn't matter now. That let's continue. It's readable.
Yes, ma'am. You continue.
You continue. It's readable.
Yeah,
Ma'am,
ma'am. You continue.
But then scroll down to the next slides in this mode itself.
I'll do that. Okay, fine.
Yes.
So the recommendations, as you see, has been divided into sections. The first section is the important drivers for examination reforms in Indian engineering education system. The section 2 covers the strategies to be adopted to align assessment with the desired student learning outcomes, wherein a 2-step method has been elaborated by AICTE, where examination assessment is a key role to play to achieve our competencies. Section 3 highlights the necessity of designing question papers to test higher order abilities and skills. When we are talking about higher order abilities, we are talking about the Bloom's taxonomy. Application of Bloom's taxonomy framework on how to imbibe higher cognitive skills in our learner, whether it is in a graduate program in engineering, pharmacy or architecture, or a postgraduate program. The section 4 is challenging how the assessment in higher order abilities and the professional skills through our earlier adopted traditional examination system, and how newer systems has to be adopted if we want more competencies and skills to be garnered by our learner at the end of the program. So the section 1, drivers for reforms. The most important driver for reforms in the examination system of Indian engineering system is the adaptation of outcome-based education framework. And the second, importance of higher order abilities and professional skills. These are the key thrusting points of AICTE to bring about reforms in the way we design our curriculum. That's why they have proposed the model curriculum, the way we design and decide on our POs or which a POs has been ascribed, COs, performance indicators and assessment. So the section 2, which is on assessment of strategy for OBE, which is very important for you and me. How to map program outcomes based on our examinations. The graduate attributes or the skills or qualities which our graduates are expected to possess articulates the general abilities to be looked for in a graduate of any undergraduate degree program. They form the program outcomes that reflect the skills, knowledge and abilities of our graduates regardless of the field of study. In the outcome-based education, a design down, that is top to down. What is the top in our pyramid? The top is our program outcomes. Then comes your course outcomes, your performance indicators, and how you achieve that performance, how your competencies would be developed in your learner, in your graduates. So outcome of each successive level needs to be aligned with to the top. That means from the bottom, that is our assessment, has to ultimately converge. Our examination assessment has to ultimately converge through our course outcomes to the ultimate program outcomes. The courses are the building blocks of a program. Teaching strategies, learning activities, assessments and resources should all be designed and organized. That means it has to be a consolidated effort to design this entire exercise to help students achieve the learning outcomes at each and every course, that is each and every subject which we offer. This, I'm going to dwell on this slide a bit. Now, I would request the participants to kindly see. So it's a flow sheet which is indicating the flow of the activities which we have to do to get outcome-based, to achieve outcome-based education. You primarily we have the program outcomes, either proposed by AICTE, suggested by AICTE, or we design it. When we are deciding on our program outcomes or optimizing our program outcomes, we academicians need to know about the scenario which is taking place in the industry, because our graduates either go for further higher education or they seek occupation, they seek jobs. So we will have to map which are the areas where our graduates are going for jobs and find out what the employer's competencies the employer needs or expects. Many times, many employers will tell you, we give them a crash training of 3 months to 6 months and we employ them. We don't want to know them the bigger gamut. But if you realize, if our students and our graduates have to become leaders, they need to know across all the verticals to be in the leadership position. So we have to understand, for example, if you see the current COVID-19 situation, government is talking about self-reliance. The entire supply chain, they would like it took from the end to end to be made in India. In the past, the culture in corporate world and in plants or manufacturing units was concentrate on your core competencies and outsource whatever is allied and peripherals. And many of the times, these outsourcing was done to other countries like China or Europe or other parts of Asia. Now, if the government's approach is going to change, because we have seen how self-reliance is very important in cases like now COVID-19, where there's a lot of toll on the resources. Countries are trying to protect their own interest. Similarly, how will the industry change? You know, that vision we need to have to design our curriculum, to design our program outcomes. What competencies does the industry expect? What competencies are required in our graduates if they want to go for higher education? we have to understand that, comprehend that, and place it as the competencies which we need to achieve or attain in our programs. Many times industries say, although your students are trained, but sometimes we have to uncondition themselves or unlearn them. That sometimes I feel we take it, it is not correct if they are saying that. So we have to make sure that redundant concepts, obsolete methods, which was used in unit processes earlier or methodologies, we do not cover them if it is totally not required in today's real life scenario in the occupational fields. So we will have to take a conscious call of what is redundant, which we need to remove from our curriculum, or how do we optimize our curriculum. Because our curriculum will decide our course outcomes with respect to every unit, and that will help us achieve the performance indicators by assessment of our learners, and that will build the expected attainments of competencies by our learner. Then only we will achieve our program outcomes. Now, if you see here, the PI stands for performance indicators. If you have a program outcome 1, there may be several program outcomes. There might be competency 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and more. Each competency, you will expect some performance indicators from the learners which will show attainment of the competencies. So here we really plan some of the competencies and PIs who might be associated with, let's say, a SEM 3 course. Some may be from a SEM 6 or a SEM 7 course. So you will have to really design and find out what competencies you expect. Your assessment here, CIE stands for continuous, evaluation, continuous internal evaluation, and SEE stands for the end semester, that is semester end examination. Project work, laboratory, assignments. AICTE has also given us and proposed the rubrics of assessment of minor assignments, major projects, minor projects, etc. Now, I'll give an example. Since I'm from the pharma field, now we've seen how much pharma vaccine technology is in focus by the governments, by the international community, and the community at large. Now, if a student wants to know how medicines are made, let's say the program outcome is manufacturing of medicine, okay? So for that, the student for the competency should know what are the formulas of tablets, capsules, novel drug delivery systems, how it is made at a bench scale, how it is made at a scale up level, what equipments, what are the qualifications of equipments required, what are the validations required, what is quality checks of raw material, right? So what about quality and quality assurance check of the end product? Okay, what is the storage condition? So they need to have several competencies. So when the senior teachers, the board of studies members are sitting together to design their course outcomes, the competencies should also be clearly demarcated. So your performance indicators decided on, and how you will assess is also decided on prior during the planning stage. Now, if you see the document from AICTE, they have given a case study. The case study which they have given is of mechanical engineering. So here you see engineering, the first program outcome which they have shown is engineering knowledge. What are the competencies which they have elaborated on? From 1.1 to 1.4, demonstrate competence in mathematical modeling, demonstrate competence in basic sciences, demonstrate competence in engineering fundamentals, demonstrate competency in specialized engineering knowledge to the program. So if you see a typical engineering curriculum has basic sciences courses, has core engineering courses, has a very few humanities and management courses. So all of these courses somewhere converge on the development of competency in the learner, and that ultimately converges on your program outcomes. So here you can see the PIs, which is indicated for the first competency, that is to demonstrate competence in mathematical modeling. What will be the indicators? which we are going to gauge and assess through our assessment, whether it is theory exam, practical exam, or projects or assignments, would be, for example, apply mathematical techniques such as calculus, linear algebra, and statistics. Apply advanced mathematical techniques to model and solve mechanical engineering problems. So this is one example which I'm just trying to put forth for the comprehension of the members who have joined in this session, who are examination in charges. For example, in mechanical engineering, the second PO which they have put is problem analysis, and they have listed out the competencies which are expected. Now, the moment we talk about problem analysis, it requires critical thinking. So for critical thinking, the Bloom's taxonomy, which we have to achieve through our examination,
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Please unmute. Please unmute yourself.
can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
When did I mute myself? I didn't realize. Should I repeat or is it fine? Hello? Should I repeat, Mangai madam, or is it fine?
Last three means 1 to 3 lines we might have missed out.
Fine.
Is it possible to share the slides with us?
I would, madam. Later on, I would certainly share my slides.
Okay, thank you.
Similarly, so the program outcome 5 is modern tools usage. I'm having a bit of problems in my, projection of my slides, but I'm trying my best. PO6 is the engineering and society. So here the link of, let's say, environmental concerns, green technologies, all these things, humanities and the cusp of engineering and humanities, very important. Regulatory aspects with respect to, so when I was talking, it's very important that our students have the sensitivity index as well. They should know the real life requirements, then only they can innovate, then only they can think in a 360 degrees perspective, very important. 7, environment and sustainability, very critical in, today, as you see, there are a lot of toll and heavy expectation on our resources. Ethics, very important. Ethics, code of conduct. Many students do not realize the ethical principles which should be governing them, not only during their academic life, but also during their professional life, which builds credibility. They should understand that following ethics essentially builds credibility on our outcomes. Communication. I know engineering colleges are doing a great job. Once we were talking, Dr. Kurande was saying that there's a lot of training on soft skills, and in fact students in final year engineering and even pharmacy, I know, maybe even architecture, are trained to face interviews, are trained to for how to do formal communication through mails and other mediums, which is very important. Communication, whether written or oral, whether technical, non-technical, very important to demonstrate as a competency in our students. So there are several others: project management and finance, lifelong learning. Remember, our students today with the rapidly emerging technologies, learning will actually be lifelong. So it is very important that our students have the bandwidth for it. They have the aptitude as well as the attitude for it, both aptitude as well as attitude. A bit of finance, when you are in a leadership, you are in a team lead role, even if you are a member of a team, you should understand finance, because finance have deep repercussions on project execution, and it's also based on the client link. So coming
Excuse me, madam. Excuse me, madam. Is
Madam?
it possible that every PO will be mapped to some CO, because there are some subjects in which you cannot map the ethics, etc. to suppose it's a discrete mathematics subject. How do we map the ethical and societal issues to that PO?
A very good question,
that
madam.
subject?
I have just a request. It's a very good question. Can we take the questions after the end of the session? So I
Okay.
have told
Yes.
that you can, there is a raise hand option. Okay. So after I finish that, just raise the option, that hand. Dr. Shrivara Mangai, madam, will unmute you and put you on live, so that you can, you can pose your question and others can also see your activities. Okay. Yeah, will that be fine, madam? Yeah. Okay. So we go to the next slide, improving structure and quality of assessment. We have seen a lot of talk on Bloom's taxonomy for assessment design. So Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives was developed way back in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom, which is widely accepted by educators for curriculum design and assessment. Now, what I have seen is, whether it is pharmacy, engineering, architecture, MCA, teachers do not know how to assess, unless you don't know your course outcome coverage. The comprehension of teachers should know. Unit 1, I just need to cover definition and a basic understanding. Unit 4, I have to go to a higher order where students should be able to analyze. This is also in tandem being taken, for example, in laboratories, so that students can analyze data. Students can rationalize data and make a sense of it. It is us who are, while we are developing our curriculum, AICTE has proposed the model curriculum. We can optimize that. We are making our course outcomes. That time only your Bloom's taxonomy is coming into picture. At what depth are you going while you're teaching? At what depth will your student learn that topic? So if you see the Bloom's taxonomy, the bottom of the pyramid is the lowest order. Merely remembering, for example, remembering a definition. Understanding means comprehending, comes the next level of Bloom's taxonomy, the level 2. The third BL level is applying. How do you apply the information? The fourth level is analyzing, higher order, breaking information into the part to explore relationships and understandings. You are giving 2 different courses. For example, I give a course on microbiology, and later in final year or third year, microbiology was taught in second year or first year, and in final year, I teach them biotechnology. The student has to correlate that information, analyze. That is very important. The student should know the entire link between the courses for analysis. The next higher level is evaluation, justifying a decision or course of action, taking a call, taking a decision based on the existing knowledge, and a rational decision. For example, sometimes we give true and false and justify. In true and false, sometimes when we give it in the master's level, you see, it is very tricky. There can be 2 or 3 options, and the students sometimes have to justify why this option is a better option to select, or why is it true. So it is evaluating the basic. It can be a case study which you are giving to the student. Creation, they say the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy order is creating new knowledge from existing knowledge. This happens when the when the students innovate, they create new things. So this is showing the pyramidal structure of the Bloom's taxonomy, which we have to follow when we are deciding our course outcomes. Not only that, sir and madam, when we are making the blueprint, now it is very critical that when the other day Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, PVC Sir has also been saying, we need to design, and the Controller of Examination, Director Board of Examination and Evaluation, Dr. Vinod Patil, the engineering colleges, pharmacy colleges, architecture, they have to design the blueprint of question paper, the model question paper. So if you have question number 1A from your unit 1 of that course, what is the Bloom's taxonomy which you have ascribed to it? If it is just merely understanding, the question will be of that level. And the verbs which I'll come to, the verb use, the action verb use in the question should match that. Because then only you can converge, as madam just now had asked a question, you can converge your assessment, your course outcome achievement through your question paper and the student outcome in the examination to ultimately your program outcomes. So it is very much highly linked. So that is very important that we design our blueprint of question paper to achieve our course outcomes, to ultimately achieve our competencies in the students, and finally to achieve our program outcomes. Our VC sir was saying the day will come with the, the new education policy, flexibility to give in to students, that students might anytime ask for exams. So we will then not create databases of question papers. We will create repositories and banks of questions. So if your question number 1 is from unit 1, we might have 50 to 100 questions, submitted by the faculty members, assessors, and we will use computer tools for permutation and combinations to every time create a new paper which will not match with the earlier paper, like they do in many competitive exams. A time will come, and it is very soon, that we will have to create such kind of blueprints and create question banks and not question paper banks, which we are doing now. For that, a lot of work has to go on our part to know what we want to achieve through our examination. Here I would also like to say, many times now in practicals, we give them a sheet, a procedural sheet, which many times does not challenge the student to think. Procedure follow करेगा, outcome आएगा. If we give them some challenges while they are doing the practicals, this is one way of getting a yield. This is the second way. You perform both, or partners can perform one each and decide which is a better strategy for that procedure of the procedure. This sets the students to think, and the comprehension improves further. We all as teachers would have to think on these assessment tools. Madam, please switch off your, mute your audio, please. Section 3, improving structure and quality of assessment, has been proposed by AICTE in its document. The Bloom's taxonomy of assessment design. The Bloom's taxonomy provides an important framework to not only design curriculum and teach methodologies, but also to design appropriate examination questions belonging to various cognitive levels. It attempts to divide learning into 3 types of domains: cognitive, affective, not effective, affective, and behavioral. And these defines the levels of performance for each domain. Very, very crucial if we have to achieve our courses. Now, how do we improve the structure and quality of our assessment, be it theory examination, internal or end semester, be it practicals, be it projects, be it assignments? Suggestive list of skills and competencies to be demonstrated at each of the Bloom's level, and the corresponding cues of verbs for the examination or the test. It is very essential that we need to train you on your behalf, should train all the teachers who are paper setters, that they have to follow. Now the first year is already of engineering and pharmacy has adopted the new syllabus. Have they adopted the Bloom's taxonomy when they have set the question paper? It's very critical for us to see that it gets implemented that way. Then only when you are going for your accreditation, whether NAC or NBA, you can actually map your examination outcomes to your course outcomes, and in between comes your performance indicators. What are your performance indicators? which shows that your student has achieved those competencies which you are expecting, which has been decided up prior when you started with the program. Now this slide, sir and madam, is showing the level of Bloom's taxonomy starting from remember to understand, to apply, to analyze, evaluate, and the final BL6, the highest level of Bloom's order, which is create. And if you can see in the panel on the third column are the question or the verbs, cues or the verbs. For example, just for remembering, you can write enlist, define, describe, recall, something like that. Understanding, you have to describe, explain, paraphrase, summarize, differentiate, etc. So these are the several verbs which has been given to depict the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Why? Because that is the level of achievement for the learner. A BL6 is very rare, which you can only achieve when you give a higher end multidimensional project in the final to the final year student, which is very important to understand. To create new knowledge, you will need to have a very strong foundation and a holistic comprehension of your domain. The next slide, I would like you to pay attention to this, very important. You see the levels of learning of Bloom's taxonomy from remembering to creating going high. How can we assess this? Can we assess creation in a fixed hour examination of internal evaluation and end semester examination? Probably not. So as it is indicated in this slide, the first 4 Bloom's taxonomy of remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing can be assessed and evaluated by examinations. That is your fixed hour examinations. While the higher order Bloom's taxonomy, which now we have included in our curriculum, projects, internships, okay, assignments, these can only be analyzed when you give them course projects, mini projects, minor project, and capstone projects. Typically, a capstone project is the end semester, the final semester project which is given to students or learners, which is multidimensional. And remember, here we have to get ethics. When they do group projects, sometimes it ends up that 1 or 2 students are proactively doing and 2 are like, passively just being there as group members. So we as teachers and mentors and guides, as Principal Court once said, they need hand-holding. We really need to handhold, because at this level, let's say at a undergraduate final year students level, sometimes they are confused. We should encourage them to ask how, why, when, why we should do something. We should encourage these questions. We should encourage inquisitiveness in the students. No question, whether it is from a student or an adult, can be stupid. It is a sense of query which drives us to ask a question. Now I come to my field and I'm trying to connect it to cognitive levels. Ladies and gentlemen, the slide which you can see is a nice colorful illustration of the human brain. Now, if you see the human brain, we know as pharmacologists that human brain, what we are born with, the brain remains the same. The number of neurons remain the same. Earlier, scientists believed that there is no cell division. Now, it has been found that in certain peculiar situations, in very typical 1 or 2 areas of the brain, we have found that new brain cells have formed, but they are not the primary brain cells, that is neurons, but the interneurons are connecting neurons. That means while we become wise, as we assume, from our childhood to adulthood to as we gain years of experience in our careers, the brain remains the same, the neurons. What changes is the connectivity. The connectivity between neurons becomes robust. It makes, I will come to that. Now you see here, so what essentially happens, what does our brain do? When a child is sitting in your classroom, our students are conditioned to classroom teaching. Although we have been trying very hard to adopt online teaching, trying to maintain continuum of academics now in this COVID-19 situation. But our students per se who are in the formal education system are conditioned to classroom teaching, where many times teachers are using blended MOOCs, showing them videos, showing them three-dimensional pictures, illustrating something in front of the class, showing them structures in an illustration form, etc. Now, what does the brain do essentially? You have sensory inputs. Sensory inputs to the brain are the senses. It can be tactiles, when your student in first year is doing a bit of welding, is using the lathe machine, the simple machineries which were used and are still used. When our students you are teaching in the class, you are giving them a lecture, it's an audio visual stimuli. So sensory inputs then gets analyzed in the brain, and it may result in a motor output. Motor output can be motor skills, which is physical skills. Architect who is drawing his designs, it can be a skill of an engineer, etc. Now, in between sensory inputs coming and motor outputs, the information which we receive from our senses, from olfactory, smell, most important, which is very impactful, is sight, visual inputs, auditory, hearing, sense of, if somebody is in perfumery, he will be working on smell, right? Somebody who's in catering and hospitality may be working on taste and culinary and gastronomic stimuli. So the thing is, we get sensory inputs, it gets comprehended and analyzed by the brain, and there is an output. Now, many of these comprehension, while we are teaching to the child, some of the information goes into long-term memory and some do not. Like I gave you an example. When your practical is not giving any challenges to the student, he is following your procedure, getting an yield and leaving the lab. Though then baad he forgets. Just before exam he may be reading. If you challenge the student to actively participate, whether in classroom while you are discussing, deliberating, making groups, right, or you are making the child actively participate in the laboratory, not passively, active participation of the child, where the child takes conscious decisions, rationalizes his decisions, the memory goes long way rather than passive learning. Passive learning, memory stays for a short time. The student may read it again and consolidate, but then again forget about it, because he has not been able to get a depth of the knowledge. Now, if you see the illustration of the brain, there are several areas. The frontal lobe, which is associated with thinking, speaking, memory, as well as movement. Temporal lobe, which is associated with hearing, learning, feelings. So there's a limbic area, emotional mind. That emotional mind also has a large role to play to our learning. Remember, today's millennials talk about relevance of what they are learning. Very important. Is it relevant? We have to tell them in the class. Why is it relevant? Why are they learning one of environmental science? Why are they learning a subject of management other than the core subject areas? The parietal lobe is associated with language and touch. The occipital lobe for vision and color perception, the cerebellum for balance and coordination, gait, movement, our movement, finer movements as well, including our finger skills when we are doing high-end jobs like designing, on paper, or making orthographic projections, etc. Brain stem is associated with our life support things of breathing, heart rate, maintaining of homeostasis like temperature of the body, etc. Now, it is very important. Now, you remember, you and me, when we saw Jurassic Park for the first time, Steven Spielberg's movie, it had such a strong impact because the visuals of a live dinosaur was the first time we saw. And we still probably remember scene by scene. Similarly, when the movie Avatar got released of Cameroon, we saw how much impactful it was to the generation because of the visuals. So visual inputs, when we are teaching, when we give three-dimensional inputs to the students, when we stimulate their thinking, it has a more impact on learning and memory as well. Coming to the most important topic of cognition. When AICTE said the attribute of cognition through Bloom's taxonomy. So what is cognition? What do we mean by the word cognition? Cognition is the mental process of gaining knowledge and understanding through the senses, experiences, and thought. Very important. So, when we give to our student experiential learning, hands-on tools, hands-on working, giving them a project and asking them, it is more of a strong input, cognitive input, because they are themselves doing and experiencing it rather than passively hearing it or seeing it. It makes a big difference on cognition of learning. The cognitive learning, there is a style of learning called as cognitive learning. Cognitive learning is a style of learning that focuses on more effective use of our brain. Our most important organ which makes us higher mammals is our brain. We are very intelligent species, human beings. Compared to many other mammals, we are of higher order intelligence. They say that we hardly use fraction of our brain during our lifetime. We can, tap it more. The cognitive learning process aims to chart the learning process for optimal thinking, understanding, and retention. Most important, are we retaining the information? Are we able to correlate two pieces of information which we have? Because that is intelligence, and that is what we have to achieve in our learners. Our learners should not have one-dimensional understanding, a silo thinking, no silo thinking. So here, elements of cognitive learning. Cognitive learning is unlike the traditional learning. हम जब हमारे बच्चों को रट्टा मार के बच्चा पढ़ता रहता है वो गाइड बुक and वो जाके से उगल देता है पेपर में, right, and then forgets about it. We don't want that kind of learning, because in today's era, in the real life scenario, a student will just have to click Google and he will get information which can also translate into knowledge. He may go to Khan Academy or any other online tool. But we don't want, we want them to know the concepts well, in depth, so that they can apply it in different scenarios, right? The rote learning or ratta marke, which we used to encourage or the system used to encourage, is not what we want in cognitive way of teaching and learning. Comprehension. Cognitive learning strategies emphasize comprehension. You need to understand the reason to learn. काफी बार क्या होता है, हमारे टीचर लोग जब फर्स्ट ईयर सेम 1 से सेम 8 तक पढ़ाते हैं, वो अपना ही सब्जेक्ट को पढ़ाते हैं. Many good teachers correlate, why they are teaching something and what is the link. It is like a beautiful M.F. Hussain painting. Okay? हमारे आज के जो millennial students है, जो learners है, जिसको हम netizens भी बोलते हैं, because they are so active in online mode. These students seek relevance. उनको अगर कोई relevant नहीं लगता कुछ, they lose interest, because they know information is just available at the click of a button. Why should they come and sit in the classroom? So it's very important, जो हमारे अलग-अलग courses है, the courses which we offer in our programs. If the M.F. Hussain painting, we make a jigsaw puzzle out of it. Each course is one part of the jigsaw puzzle. And when the teachers are teaching, especially in third year and final year, they have to show them the big picture, the big canvas, and the application of the big picture. The big picture and the big canvas is the M.F. Hussain painting, which is our entire program. And the student should not learn course-wise without understanding what is the link, why they are learning it. It is the credit of the teachers who make that comprehension happen. Let it happen in the students, so that students understand the relevance of the entire curriculum. Memory. Cognitive learning discourages rote learning, where you cram material for memorization. In cognitive learning, the goal is to understand the subject at a deeper level. This creates an immersive effect that helps recall. Recall means retention of memory, recalling information, and improves your ability to relate to new information with the past or the old information. Now, we are teaching millennials where technology is changing so fast, redundancy happens so fast. Our students need to correlate the current information with what they have learned in the past. Very important. So for that, they need a deeper sense of learning. Application. Cognitive learning strategies encourage you to reflect on the material and how to apply it to current and future situations. So that visionary aspect is very important. With this, you develop improved critical thinking, problem solving skills, and a visionary leadership trait. Even if the student does not have a leadership trait, the student should have the vision to understand that technologies will change and they will have to adopt to it, and have the bandwidth or the aptitude for it, which is very, very important and crucial for our students to be relevant in the job front. What are the benefits of cognitive learning? Enhance comprehension. Okay, they will understand the big picture, understand why they have learned those courses and the curriculum, improve their problem solving skills. They will have greater sense of confidence. Insecurity will go down because that unknowingness will reduce. They will know that whatever changes in technology happens, if I change my job, if I go into a domain, I will be able to adopt because they have the fundamental skills. They know how to extrapolate the information. Encourage the continuous learning. In today's era, your degree does not end with your learning. Your education has to be, your company will give you training with newer platforms. Regulations will change with time, and we have to be adept, and we have to be, working along with this and learn and keep on continuously learning. Now coming to memory. Now when we are teaching to the students, how do they retain the knowledge? What are the different human memories we have? Sensory register, information through our senses. When your mother used to make sambar or something where they put the kadi patta tadka with the mustard seed, we remember that smell today. When we cook, when we do that, we sense that smell. Typical smell of the pav bhaji while we are passing the shop. These are all sensory repository of information in our brain. We know from the smell of the food what masala has been put, what has been put in the tadka. This is the memory bank. Certain visuals which you have will remind you of your childhood, some memory, maybe a scenery, maybe something which happened in your family, etc. Short-term memory is I kept my key here, okay? Chabi ko idhar rakha, I will take it. This short-term memory. Chashma idhar rakha, which often happens now, which who have crossed 45, chashma kidhar rakha. Short-term memory. Long-term memory is the unlimited duration, capacity, and coding, which is semantic. Long-term memory is semantic memory. Okay. Now, in this also, there are explicit memory and implicit memory. Now, implicit memory is a subconscious memory. When you are you drive, okay? Many times while driving, you are not very conscious. There is people coming, you automatically, you will steer your steering wheel on the other side and avoid contact with any impediment on your part. When you are a swimmer, even after 10 years, you go to swim, you will be able to swim. A cycler will be able to cycle. These are implicit subconscious memories, and it is associated with procedural memories. It's very subconscious. Many times you don't have to consciously do it. Okay. Sometimes somebody asks me, is breathing also subconscious? Breathing is taken care by our visceral organs. Our breath is excellent. Even while you're sleeping, your inhalation, exhalation goes on. It is not even subconscious. It is done by our autonomic nervous system, which takes care of, our survival. Anyway, coming to explicit memory, which is conscious memory. Now, conscious memory is declarative memory, which is based on facts and events. When you give a project work to your students, when they do a laboratory exercise which has taxed them, they've made them think, when they do internships, it will give them facts and events to remember certain concepts on. The concepts are linked to an event. There is to a performance of an experiment. So this can be linked to, the declarative memory can be linked to episodic memory and semantic memory. Episodic memory is linked to events and experiences which can be in your classroom, it can be in your laboratory while they are doing their project work. And semantic memory is more of knowledge which they have got, some enlisting of names, certain things, those are related to semantic memory. Both these memories are achieved when we give formal training in the classroom from primary, secondary to higher education. Let me tell you the wonders of brain when we come to, I told you, the number of neurons remain the same. So what changes when we are growing from our primary school days to our postgraduate days, when you do your PhD, when you have come out in your career? The adaptation of the brain. There is a concept called as, when you are learning, when you are formally trained, you're a graduate, it is called as neuroplasticity. What is neuroplasticity? It is the brain's ability to change and adapt. There is type 1, which is structural plasticity, which we achieve through our formal training from our school days to our higher education days, through experiences, through learning, giving examination, learning through our projects, the memories which are formed, events which are associated with concepts of knowledge. Functional plasticity. As you know, an Alzheimer's patient or a Parkinson's patient does not recover. Those neurons which have degenerated do not recover. Many times you'll see that when in accident patients, we have seen with Michael Schumacher, who had an accident, Formula racer. So brain damaged area, the other area tries to take over. And the concept of occupational therapy, physiotherapy, they help achieve those. The brain center to shift other brain areas to take up our sensory and our motor skills. So that is also one kind of plasticity called as functional plasticity. So what is our memory which we generate when we teach our students? The memory is formed, as I told, because you are teaching them, they are hearing you, they are performing an experiment or a project, storing that information, retaining that by long-term memory. It is called as long-term memory, and retention of the memory, and they can retrieve that information when they have to, let's say, plan for their company or they have to plan for a project. And this is called as synaptic plasticity. How? You must be wondering why certain things I remember in life, certain things I forget totally. But you will understand one thing. Information which is reinforced time and again. जब हम लोगों ने पोएम्स राइम्स सीखा था बचपन में, मराठी में हो, हिंदी में हो, इंग्लिश में हो, हमने हमारे टेबल्स सीखे थे. It was rote learning, but we have time and again reinforced it when we did our mathematics and statistics problems and other algorithm solving. So that helps reinforcement of the information, going back to the information, reading it or attending a webinar again in life helps in the synaptic plasticity and retrieving that information. Knowledge gets further stronger. Your base of knowledge, this learner's base, gets further strengthened. As I told you, what is the difference when I was 10 years old and I was in class 5 and I'm 22 years old and I have graduated? The difference is the circuitry. Your neurons are the same. Your nervous system has the same neurons which we were born with. They grow in size, but they don't grow in numbers. What changes is the circuitry. Faculty members who are attending this, who are working on artificial intelligence, you also have deep neural learning, right? Layering, where a triad of layers of neural network is used for artificial intelligence, which is used in machine learning. Very similar is our brain. Ladies and gentlemen, it throughout our life, while we are becoming wiser, hopefully, when we achieve wisdom, when we are taking more training, the circuitries become fortified. Neurons make new connection with the next neuron, with other cluster of neurons. As you know, a neuron has two processes which we have learned in basic biology in 10th standard, axon and dendrites. More dendrites will form. They will make contact with the next neuron. They will form spinous structures and the network becomes very, very strong. So you can see here it's written network resizing. That's how the brain becomes more wiser. And that's why we humans have very higher order of intelligence. Now, if you see here, because animals work more on instinct and have very primal way of response, although primates, that is monkeys, rodents, sometimes rats, we've seen the phenomenal intelligence level, but nowhere near the level at which humans exist, the intelligence level. They are more for seeking food, saving themselves. Those are the kind of intellectual which is seen in those species. Now, what I told you just now on networks is what is shown in this diagram. You see here it's an illustration which is showing how do you fortify learning, how do you give learning to your student that they don't forget it. They retain it, they restore it, they further build on it in their careers. When you give weak signals during your classroom teaching, just merely telling them something, it does not produce a change in the synapse. A synapse is the gap between two neurons. While when you're teaching skills, your pedagogies, your innovative pedagogies, you're using MOOCs, you're using audiovisual aids, you're using three-dimensional figures. What will happen? The synaptic change, while the student is listening to you, watching you, experiencing those activities, the student's synaptic changes will be built in the brain. And what is the implication of it? Long-term learning. Long-term learning which they can use and correlate throughout their careers. How do we reinforce? We can use technology. Reinforcement, I told you, आप कुछ incidents बचपन में हुआ या आपके tables आप फिर से याद करते हो. When we think about it again becomes fresh. You will even sometimes, maybe 4th standard, you had a fall from your bicycle. You will remember कौन से गली में हुआ था, slope था, what was I wearing, my mother then applied this to me, haldi to me, whatever, you know. Those are the kind of memories because you thought about it, had a great impact. How can we make our lectures, our pedagogies more impactful so that the long-term learning and cognition happens in the students is what we have to design. And there are many ways. One of them is webinars, using audiovisual aid, using MOOCs, giving a three-dimensional this field to the students, etc. The last section of the AICTE document is section 4, assessing higher order abilities and professional skills. Innovative educational experiences to teach and assess. Teaching has to go hand in hand with assessment. The depth of teaching, whether it is theory, practical, project, assignment, will be based on our course outcomes and competencies which we want. Course outcomes and competencies which you expect in the learner. So you have to give course projects, open-ended experiments. मैंने आपको जैसे पहले कहा, आपने एक प्रोसीजर शीट दे दिया, वो बच्चा करेगा ऑर्गेनिक केमिस्ट्री का प्रैक्टिकल, उसको एक यील्ड मिलेगा, सिंपल 2 दिन में भूल जाएगा. आपने उसको बोला कि इसमें हम ये रिएजेंट भी डाल सकते हैं और दूसरा भी डाल सकते हैं. Try and tell me which one is the better and why. Tell me the reaction. They will think about it. So it will be more active learning than passive learning. So it's all on our efforts of our pedagogies. Project-based learning modules, MOOCs, co-curricular experiences for holistic development of the personality, minor and mini projects, final year projects, internship experiences, e-portfolio of students, I'm sure engineering colleges are doing it, has to be built and made so that our students can learn on it. Now, you know, in the section 4, AICTE has also given us the rubrics of analyzing our project work or our theory or orals. It is very important. There are 3 components of the rubrics. The performance indicator, PI. What is the criteria for the performance indicator, which will help us assess the performance? The second, the descriptors. What are the characteristics and parameters which you are going to associate with the performance? And the level of performance. Define your level. A final year student cannot be expected to a project of an MTech level. So what is the level of performance you expect in an oral or a project-based assessment? And again, as Professor Ukrande had said, Dr. Court and other esteemed members of chairpersons of Board of Studies, students will need hand-holding. Students will need our mentoring. They will be confused because they are going to do this for the first time. We will have to give them ideas. We will have to tell them whether they are going, whether their ideas are viable or not. Let them think. But at least we can advise them whether it's a viable idea, advise them how to go about it, what will be the time tenure of execution of a project. So all these things we have seen in Avishkar also in engineering. From so many students are coming with such bright ideas, and I've seen engineers and pharmacy both are working in agriculture and other areas. That shows how they are able to understand application of their skills and knowledge to other domains and fields. Very, very important. And we have been doing it, but we'll have to further bolster it. Now see here the rubrics for assessment of project. ऐसा ही नहीं marks दे दो, presentation अच्छा दिया. What was the purpose of the project? उसमें research element का कितना part था? Choices क्या थे? If a model was made by the student, were there various other ways of making that model? Did the student choose the model by the right method? Why did they choose it? Was it because it was the best method or because of time restrictions or whatever? What were the alternate designs? A student should not have a one-dimensional this. They should know what other approaches should have been worked on, could have been worked on in that project. So application of their engineering principles, the knowledge which they have garnered till date, the final design and the interpretation of results are all categories which will give us our performance indicators. These are the parameters which will give us our performance indicators which you link to your course outcomes. Then for written and oral tests, written communication, presentation skills, how they made the visual aids, oral presentation, body skills, very important. These things I know you all are taking in the final year and across the years. Section 4 deals with assessing higher order abilities and professional skills. यहाँ पे open book examination we can't even think about it till now. Traditional में we would think students are cheating, but now in today's era, when they go out in the work field, with a click of button they get all their details. Why do we deprive them of the information? Let the information be there. Let them convert that information to knowledge if they have done so already in their minds, and apply that knowledge. So the application is the key. So what is the advantage of open book examinations, which was proposed by UGC also during the COVID-19 guidelines? Less demanding on memory and hence less stressful for the students. Questions can emphasize more on problem solving, application of knowledge and higher order thinking rather than simple recall retention, recall of facts. Assessment questions can reflect real life situations and case studies that require the comprehension, information retrieval, whatever knowledge they know, and synthesizing skills, correlating skills, that how can I apply that knowledge to this case study? This is very important, and that is higher order Bloom's learning. Now, sir and madam, we really need to deliberate as key decision makers, because what happens till 2030 in our university will be decided by your planning and decisions now. So what to teach? What will be our curriculum? Are you going to directly adopt the AICTE's curriculum, or you are going to optimize it based on regional occupational requirements? Because nowadays you'll find many of the IITs and other institutions are doing a lot of exercise on mapping the regional requirements of occupation and designing curriculum or tweaking curriculum to meet those regional requirements or country requirements. And as I told you, now self-reliance is the buzzword. Having our own supply chain is a buzzword. Indigenous manufacturing is going to be the buzzword. So how do we also pitch in into that? Design your course outcome. Identify your performance indicators, the competencies you expect in your learner. And finally, how will you assess it? What will be the question paper? Make your blueprint. How to teach? What innovative pedagogies are the teachers going to use during classroom teaching? Laboratory exercises, project work, and ultimately how to assess. They are all linked, as when madam was asking. Ultimately, they will all converge to achievement of our program outcomes. This is the edifice. This is the, if we have to change in the next 10 years, if we have to have a vision for our next generation, challenging times, and we are the ones, we are their mentors. The next generation, we owe them that. So we have to work and envision transformative and innovative changes across the verticals and pillars of higher education. It includes curriculum improvement optimization, innovative pedagogies, faculty, training of faculty, research, partnerships. We cannot do many things alone. We need to partner. Interdisciplinary will become a buzzword in the future. Everything is correlated in some way or the other. Building on our infrastructure. Merely we don't do it for getting our NBA A grade. We do it so that we can bring a positive change in higher education. Preparedness for real life. As you know, the government is looking for innovators now, entrepreneurs now. So we have to give them understanding. The rigid tests and standards have to be removed. We should give the openness with the skills and competencies to our learners so that they can innovate, collaborate. Collaboration is key. They cannot work in silos alone in their island. स्वतःच्या याच्यामध्ये फक्त If we do, it is not going to give the dimensional outcomes. You have to collaborate and harness on the domain expertise of your collaborators or your team members. Very important. You cannot work alone and do excellent work. You can do work, maybe mediocre, maybe good, but not excellent. For excellence, you need to collaborate. Encourage the spirit of entrepreneurship, and that can only come, as I told you in the beginning, when our students have the sensitivity and empathy quotient. They know the unmet needs of society. They comprehend that. They have the bandwidth to take a bit of risk. They have to, and we all have to support them. So we have to provide these qualities. In 2014, the Forbes magazine had made an article which said top issues facing higher education. And one of the important focus which they had made is, as you see in the panel, the green circle towards my right is the competency-based education. We have to develop our entire curriculum and our outcomes based on the competencies which we expect, and for that we academicians should be well versed with the expectation of further higher education, the industry, the corporate world, and the occupational fields to which our students go to. And the students can also explore other fields where the application, for example, AI application is everywhere in medical sciences, agricultural sciences, predictive technology. If we can predict mutation in virus, now COVID-19, we've seen a certain number of strains. If we can predict the mutation of viruses, it can be such a big boon to mankind, so that we can gear ourselves and we can have the exigency plan for any kind of such kind of pandemics. We will be prepared. We can also stall it. So very, very important. As you are aware, sir and madam, Swayam platform, and many of you I know, the other day I was having a conversation with the principals, Ukrande sir also, Coach sir said that, we have the engineering has a 170 cumulative credit points. So can you offer between semester 1 to 7 or from 3 to semester 7, let's say, so from semester 3, that is second year to sem 7, that you tell them to, over and above your cumulative credits which they achieve through all the courses which has been structurally offered to them by our curriculum, they may take 2 or 4 courses across these 2.5 years from Swayam or NPTEL and complete it by giving the exams. So, and they can be, that additional certificate can be given either by the university or by the college, acknowledging that the student had taken additional, because this Swayam and NPTEL has been developed by government with a lot of investment and effort. We need to tap it. We need to harness it. Our students should be allowed to also take, for example, if Swayam is offering a course on patents, let them take a course on patents. If they want to take this on finance management, they should be allowed. If they want to know about the regulatory aspects of starting a new industry, what are the clearances, let them take courses on that. We should be flexible and allow them to play with the spectrum of offered courses of Swayam and NPTEL, but you may also decide on what will be more important for your students. Now, please, this is the statistics which I got from March 2020. Completed courses wherein examinations also done are much fewer. The number of students who have enrolled are much higher if you see from the numbers. So that shows that students take the course but are not able, the exam is not so simple, are not able to pass the exam. So we'll have to see what we can do that across our spectrum, all students are not having the ability to, so we will have to see whether somebody mentioned, can we, I think Virut sir mentioned once, can we take the exams, if they take a Swayam course, can we take the exams ourselves? We'll have to see the logistics, because it will become very difficult. We are already having so many courses to handle the teachers. So, it is adding on to our this, but the government is already giving a platform for giving examinations to the enrolled students for these Swayam and NPTEL platforms. So the advantages of Swayam: video courses available, easily downloadable study material, self-evaluation tests, forum to discuss queries and solve doubts, and the provision of getting your certification by giving the examination. The other is the EPG Pathshala. This was the initiative of MHRD under its National Mission on Education through AICTE, being executed by UGC, which has books, and the platform is available to us. The next is very important, I feel, is the Swayam Prabha. In March 17, the other day, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir was mentioning, how do we reach the unreached? If you see in Konkan areas, some of the areas जो दूर दराज के regions है, वहाँ पे सिर्फ BSNL का connection है. लोगों को connectivity का issue है. There are many families which don't have internet. What government has done is, it is working through, because television, even if an old second hand of one television is available at households, television is now, it's like an entertainment source. So what the government has done through Swayam Prabha, they have started through your Tata Sky. You will open, one of the channels will be Swayam Prabha. 32 channels, which is covering programs for the curriculum from 9th standard to post-graduation. And in March, once after the COVID outbreak, the finance ministry has given more funds, to this, and 12 more channels has been added. So we as faculty, we as university can develop these programs, record these programs, and have a good quality yardstick, or audit our quality and send it to Swayam Prabha, so that it can be through the Maharashtra and through it's through satellite. So there is no problem of internet connectivity, and government is giving grants for it. It can reach to students who are in rural or semi-rural area who do not have access to internet. Now, if you see the AICTE model curriculum, which was released in 2018 on undergraduate program, the last pages is on virtual lab. Now, if you see the university circular, the state government GR, they are talking about conducting final year practicals by online module, assignments, etc. Now, the virtual labs was designed, this platform, by MHRD of Government of India, coordinated by IIT Delhi. As on today, there are 100 virtual labs. You can get this information in that AICTE draft of February 2018, where it has given the model curriculum for undergraduate engineering programs. And currently, there are 700 plus web-enabled experiments designed for remote operating and viewing. Can we use it in this situation? It is covering electronics and communication, computer science, engineering, and others. Can we also design our own web-enabled experiments, validate it, and add to the repository of virtual lab run by the MHRD? We should do it. That will be a big contribution of the faculty members and Board of Studies of Engineering from University of Mumbai. E-Yantra initiative by IIT Bombay to create the next generation of embedded system engineers with a practical outlook to help provide practical solutions to some of the real world problems. Very important for our students to understand what are the challenges for society, what are the real world unmet needs, and work towards it. First, to be sensitive to it, understand the problem, and whether it is within their capabilities to look into and find a solution. Talk to a Teacher program, again an MHRD initiative with IIT Bombay and Amrita University. It is indigenously built multimodal multimedia e-learning platform, providing immersive e-learning experience that is almost as good as real classroom experience, developed by the Amrita e-learning research lab. Instructor can perform live evaluation of the learners and get real-time feedback. Can also act as an online meeting tool that can support online social collaborations. NPTEL, I know engineering teachers and the boards are aware of it, initiated by IITs and the Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore. It has the largest online repository in the world of courses in engineering, basic science, and selected humanities and social science subjects. More than 56,000 hours of video content is available. It is the most accessed library of peer-reviewed educational content in the world. And next is the online platform for teachers training, ARPIT, annual refresher program in teaching. And we've seen the UGC regulations, which was dated December 2018, which is talking about acquiring, teachers can acquire these ARPIT program with 40 hours of instruction material, proctored examination, and they can get it counted as a refresher program in their career advancement. Next is the National Digital Library of India, launched in May 2016, and it has more than 80,000 books which are available. So it also had podcasts and videos. So we can actually, our students can access it and make avail this facility, which is available in the digital format. Remember, we had started digitizing our own monographs in the university library. Our library is like it has a wonderful storehouse of old books. People vouch for the university library. It's linked with the Rajabai Tower. And many of the monographs, which are old monographs, we have also been trying to digitize them, make the digitized version of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this technologically rapidly changing world, let's build a strong foundation for our learners, which they can scale up and build on throughout their careers. Thank you very much for hearing me out. And I request Mangai Madam to kindly see if there are hands raised and if we can take a couple of questions. Dr. Ukarande is also there, so he can also pitch in, when it is a discussion on engineering. Other chairpersons of Board of Studies are also there. They can also, answer. It's not that I only need to answer. I'll just stop my projection.
Ma'am, Dr. Abha Doshi is there. Dr.
Okay.
Abha.
Okay.
Madam, please unmute and you can talk.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Abha Madam,
Yes,
boliye.
Hello.
Yes, Abha
Yes,
Madam, please.
very good presentation, and when you have shown the brain and the mapping of the brain with the learning, that was too good. I know you are a pharmacology teacher, so you can do the justice with that. My question is our learning or the teaching with the society. How to correlate our teaching with the society, because we all are doing various awareness program and some help to the society. So can you answer about that?
I think once IIT professors had come, they were saying we should give them projects which are linked to society. For example, one of the IIT professor, I think it was Professor Jagtap or somebody, said he had gone to BHU, IIT BHU, and there people were talking about gravitational waves. The students were asking about gravitational wave because that time the evidences of gravitational wave had just started pouring in. And then he said, I asked the student that in Ganga, chromium levels are high, metal levels are high. Do you think that is one of the reasons that the incidence and prevalence of cancer is high downstream of the Ganga, Varanasi and beyond? Students did not know that. Engineering students